Welcome to the Starting Over Stronger show, where you'll find help and hope for your divorce survival and recovery. Divorce well, live well.
Divorce is like a giant reset button in your life. And like resetting a computer, if you aren't careful, much can be lost and you may never get back to where you want to be. But take heart, there's much to learn about how to be careful as you divorce. Hey guys, welcome back to the Starting Over Stronger Divorce Survival and Recovery show. Today's guest is another inspiring survivor's own story, and Kiersten is our guest today. She is here to tell her story of divorce and how she started with nothing and stopped for nothing to recreate a life she now loves after her divorce. And I can't wait to hear her story. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you are very welcome. Well, so Kiersten and I connected virtually through one of many great social media groups that I follow, and she took interest when I asked if anyone wanted to share their story of divorce survival and recovery. And I'm so glad she did. I think we're going to love what she has to share today. So we're going to do it like this. We are going to talk about divorce survival, and then we'll get into the divorce recovery a little bit later, as we want to focus mostly on that today. And so to start off with, Kiersten, tell us the story of your divorce, how the relationship began, what the marriage was like, how it all came to an ending, how long it took, and how you felt at the end of it all. And take all the time you want here. I may jump in with questions, but you have the mic. And if you would, just start with telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, first of all, my name is Kiersten. Right now I live just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Going back to my ex-husband, we met in 2002. And we were married in 2003. We met at a dance club. You know how they say you don't meet quality at the club. Maybe I should have learned that. But I was young and, wasn't fantastically prepared with the self-esteem. So we met, and things were pretty rocky from the beginning. Actually, the very first month he was fantastic. They call it love bombing I don't know if a lot of people know much about narcissistic personality disorder, but he just made me feel like I was fantastic and wonderful for about a month or two, and then it went away. He slowly pushed everyone out of my life that I was close to, and I was just dependent on him. And so we were married for 9 years. We had 2 beautiful children. Prior to getting married, I used to do hair, and after having kids, I stayed home with them, and it was great, but it was not good because at the end of the marriage, I did not have a career to go back to. So it was very rough. Anyways, so we were married, and there was lies, there was cheating, there was all of those things, and it came to an end we separated in 2011, and I filed for divorce, and our house was being foreclosed on. My car was repossessed. I didn't have a job. I'd been watching children at our home for years, and I did not know what I was going to do. I had nothing, completely just nothing. I didn't know how I was going to take care of my kids, and he was not paying child support regularly. So it was rough.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot. It sounds like it didn't end well for you, and I know that's a really hard spot to launch from, but you did it. And I don't want to get off on a tangent. We don't intend to. So we're going to just kind of take the assumption that you had an attorney that did what they needed to do and you got your fair share, but maybe that just turned out to be nothing or too little. And, obviously the other side of that coin is some women end up with poor legal representation and they get kind of taken to the cleaner. So regardless, though, you were starting over with nothing after your divorce. And that is a painful and difficult reality, no matter how you got there. What can you share with us about that?
Okay, so our house was being foreclosed. Like I said, I didn't know what I was going to do. I looked around and thought, what should I do? And I have some family members that are fantastic. My father actually let me borrow their car for a little while I tried to find work that was close, because I lived near Salt Lake City at the time. And after looking for a bit, I couldn't find anything that was going to support us. And I have a sister that lived in Tennessee, and her husband owned a company, and she said, come out here, live out here, and you can work for him for a while. And so I sold everything we had in a garage sale, and I moved across country with my children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what did he say about you moving that far away?
At that point, we were in the middle of the divorce, which was kind of good, because if the divorce had already gone through, I could not have done this.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, because the divorce was still happening and I was going through legal aid because I didn't have enough money for an attorney, and he wasn't even showing up for any of the hearings, anything. So they allowed me to move cross country, and I told them I had to because I needed a job, and it was true. I wasn't just trying to, get away from him. That's not what it was about. So,
Right.
yeah. So I was lucky that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds like it.
definitely. Uh-huh.
Well, you definitely, I'm sure, dealt with the fear of scarcity. That's a really like an emotional roller coaster ride that nobody wants to ride, alone especially.
Yeah.
And, you're already adjusting to being single again, raising kids alone, being responsible for paying bills and all that stuff. And to add being in fear of your survival along with that, that's a lot. What would you say was your first step out of that fear and scarcity into taking ownership of your future and deciding to save your own self?
Well, first, I would say there were a couple of times that I failed. I was living with my sister, and I moved out on my own thinking I could handle it, and I moved into a basement apartment. And my ex was kind of paying child support at the moment. He would pay and then not pay. And I believed him that he was going to. So I moved in thinking I would have the money. Unfortunately, there were several months he did not pay me, and I could not afford to stay there anymore. So I moved back with my sister, and I felt completely and totally just at the bottom of everything. And so what I did at that point, I had been working for a year or two. I went to go file my taxes, and my ex actually owed the IRS a bunch of money. And the first thing I did was file innocent spouse, because I did not know he wasn't paying the IRS when he wasn't paying them. And I was granted that. And so that got me out from under that boulder. And
that's funny because we just talked about that exact thing with
Did
the
you?
tax accountant in the last episode.
Oh, well, perfect. See?
So,
yes,
your
it
case in
was. It was exactly what needed to happen. Well, and honestly, the tax returns I had the only debts I had at that point were student loans. And I used tax returns to pay those off. And my family had a big meeting. And I am not a person who likes to take help at all. I do not ask for help. It's just a thing. And they all got together and talked about what they were going to do about Kiersten. And it was the lowest point of my life, honestly and truly. But something fantastic came out of it. A family member said, why don't you go back to school? And I thought, why would I go back to school? I still have 2 years left to get my bachelor's degree. And I said, you know what, maybe I will. I don't know. And my family member said, why don't you take out a little bit of a student loan to help you with rent a little bit at first until you get a better job? And I thought, that sounds like a terrible idea, but it felt right all of a sudden. And he said, what do you want to do? And I started thinking and was trying to figure out. And I said, well, I kind of wanted to be a teacher when I was younger. And he said, you know what? You're not going to make a lot of money being a teacher. And there's nothing wrong with being teachers. It was not. And I and I love being, I have many teachers in my family, so would never want to say that was bad. But I started thinking, and I thought, you know what? He's probably right. And he said, why don't you go into healthcare? I had no idea what I was going to do with it, but it felt right. So I went back to school to be for healthcare administration. So that's where I pulled myself out right there. Awesome. That was the beginning.
Yeah. Sounds like it. And so that was, I heard two things in that. You accepted help, and as hard as it was, you knew you needed to reach out and let other people help you. That cannot be understated. That's a huge thing that a lot of women really, really struggle with. And then two, you figured out a way to go back to school to further educate yourself and prepare yourself for a more stable career. Those are huge. That's awesome. I want to tell you I'm proud of you, because that is those are two really, really hard things for women to do after divorce. So congratulations on that.
Well, and honestly, it's one of those things too where women who are in an abusive relationship, they keep everything a secret. Yeah. And they don't want to tell people how bad it really is. So when you finally say, I need help, it's a big step. It is, because you don't want people to know. And then going back to school was the beginning of the best part of my life. So,
Very
yeah.
good. Well, I didn't mention it before, but today's title for the episode is Going from Zero to Heroine. And so I want to share some, as a coach, as a divorce coach, I want to share about some just different things that you can do to help in different ways. And I want to you to share, first of all, what you did in each of these areas. And we'll wrap it up with your big takeaway or life lesson. I like to call it the gifts that divorce gives us, because we always go into divorce thinking it's bad and terrible and it's going to be hard. And sometimes it is. But once we get some distance from it, almost every woman I talk to will tell you something that came to them or through them that never would have if they hadn't gone through divorce. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But so the first tip is to figure out what success looks like after divorce. And that's really what you've been describing, trying to figure out where you fit in. You had to try to envision a lifestyle that you wanted and what it was going to cost. What can you tell us about how you approach this specifically?
Okay, so like I was saying, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do school-wise, because I knew that was going to be where I was going to end up, I had to think with the end in mind. That was the biggest thing for me. Okay, so where do I want to end up? And I had to make a choice. Did I want to be a teacher and do something? Of course, I loved the idea of teaching, but I knew that probably would not support me and both of my kids at that point in my life. So I looked at what I needed to do and how I wanted to get there, and I honestly had faith too. I put all of my faith in my higher power. I don't know, everybody has their own, and I went with it. So, yep.
Well, it sounds like it worked out well for you. So that's good. And next, the thing that we're going to talk about next is figuring out what you have. And this can be a lot of different things. We'll talk a little bit about the financial, but this can also be material and emotional. You've got to figure out, once the divorce is final, the judge has signed, and you have your whole future ahead of you. You've got to kind of, first of all, financially make a list of everything you own and everything you owe. Write it as a balance sheet or budget, if you will. You need to see in black and white to figure out how to deal with that financial piece. And then I think you kind of go through a similar process. Obviously, material things, if you're moving, you've got to go through, the division of all the material items in your house. And then emotionally, you've got to figure out where you are and what you have and where you want to be. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I would say that I had to go down the line and figure out exactly what I had, what I was thinking, what I was feeling, and if there were problems, how to fix those things. And if there were good things, how to focus on those things.
Today's episode is sponsored by Rescore, a woman-owned credit repair company you can trust. Other credit companies I've referred to in the past promised high and delivered low for my clients. Rescore only charges for results. There's never a contract or monthly fee, and they're partnered with an attorney to represent you if required. It's evident Rescore cares about people, and they communicate it in everything they do. Whether you want to purchase a new home, a new car, refinance student loans, need credible debt consolidation, or you just need to raise your score for your personal or business credit, you will find Jana Fox and Paige White and their entire staff to be knowledgeable, non-judgmental, and creative in getting results, even when you might have thought your situation was hopeless. They truly are changing people's lives by changing their credit score. Empower your life. Call Rescore at 855-273-7267 or visit rescoreyourlife.com. Please tell them you heard about Rescore on Starting Over Stronger. Cutrera Law, helping people when bad things happen. Kansas City divorce attorney Nick Cutrera has been offering strong yet compassionate legal representation for almost 2 decades. Voted best of the bar 7 times and the coveted super lawyer 3 years running, he's earned these honors as an effective litigator who works hard to avoid litigation where fair settlements are possible. Every case is different. Cutrera law successfully tries or settles cases where both parents gain substantial, meaningful contact with children, or which a parent's visitation is restricted based on the best interests of the kids, also increasing or decreasing child support based on present financial circumstances. Each case is litigated according to its own merit. The choice of an attorney is a personal decision that should not be made based on advertising alone. As always, Starting Over Stronger Coaching recommends interviewing a few attorneys before making your selection. If you are in the Kansas City area, I highly recommend making Nick Cutrera one of those calls. Call Cutrera Law at 816-525-5226 or visit cutreralaw.com. That's CUTRERALAW.com. Please tell them you heard about them on Starting Over Stronger. Now back to the show.
You have to focus on the positive. I think that if you think positive thoughts, good positive things will come to you. So that's basically what I did. I kind of wrote some things down and said, okay, this is how I want to get there. I own, what do I have? I didn't even have a car. I didn't have anything. I knew that my credit score was a mess and I needed to fix my credit. So I had to find a way to do that. That was basically one of the biggest things in the beginning. But, just kind of looking at everything that I didn't look at before and was kind of closing my eyes to. And it was something that had to happen, but it was important. It needed to happen. So,
and I'm going to guess, because I've been there and I already know the answer, that was a very painful process.
Yes.
Right?
It was painful and scary. It is. You can't even get a phone with bad credit, Yes. You've got to pay the whole thing, getting bills. So you really have to look at everything. Yep.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I have spoken to attorneys, financial advisors, and therapists, and all kinds of different people about what I do as a divorce coach and real estate consultant. And that's one of the things that I say is the number one asset in the divorce is not the house. It's the credit score.
Yep.
Because whatever you do with the house, the credit score is going to determine what is possible and not possible for you from the day the divorce is final on. So it's interesting that I didn't even prompt you, and you said that. So you're another case in point.
It's important. Credit, you just don't even think about it. I think my credit score was in the 400s at the end of our divorce. I had a foreclosure and a car repossession. So there was, I had a long way to go.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Well, and the next thing you have to do is figure out where all your money is going. You kind of, as Dave Ramsey says, you got to give each dollar a name. I use the everydollar.com app. You can do it for free. You can also get a $10 version of it, and it'll let you connect your bank account. So it will kind of do some of the categorizing of expenses for you. Did you use anything like that?
I wrote some things down. I was never, prior to the divorce, I was not fantastic at budgeting. But at this point I had to be. I had to look at, okay, what things do I have to pay for? What things are just extra fun things that I don't really need? I had to cut all of those things out. I had to cut subscriptions out. Anything that I was just paying for and didn't need, because there's so many things you don't realize you're paying for until you look at everything and you itemize it and you go, oh, well, I don't need to pay for that. So that was definitely something I needed to do. But I also needed to remember that my kids and I still needed fun once in a while. So I had to put some money aside for us because, they had a big change too. They moved across country and away from their dad, who they loved, And so it was I had to make money, have some money set aside for us to live a normal life as well. So, yeah.
Excellent point. Well, the goal with the budget is not just to know where your money is going. It's really about freedom. And I know personally from experience that it doesn't feel that way. Like, I don't want to look at it. I want to just be blind to it, and just hope for the best. But you can, if you'll sit down and discipline yourself to do it, you can make even minor adjustments that are just not even felt necessarily to be able to meet your goals. And so really it's all about freedom freedom to do what you really want to do, because you're not frittering money away because you just don't know where it's going. So I think it's a hard step for a lot of people, especially if you didn't take care of any of the money stuff in the marriage. It's a hard step, and I totally get that from personal experience. So and then the next step in there is creating a plan to deal with any debt that you're left with. Did you have any debt after the divorce?
After the divorce, there were a few debts I had. They weren't big. The ones that were big were my student loans, because prior to getting married, I went to cosmetology school, and I had some loans. And when I was married to my ex-husband, asking him for money was not a fun thing. So I let them go into default. So that was something I had to take care of. But there were a couple of things. I had a couple of small credit cards prior to getting married. And so I went through a credit repair place and started paying those off. The smaller things first, and paying things as little as I could, but just to get them out of the way. And once you pay something off small first, there's that check mark, kind of, that feeling of accomplishment, and it gets you rolling. It's it's a good feeling. So that was the beginning of that. So, well,
and debt's it feels like anyway, it's almost a fact of life anymore. But, if you understand it, you can control it. You have to just figure out, what is the best strategy with what you are left with, and how to take steps, even if they're small ones, to get where you feel like you're managing and controlling it well. And so it sounds like you did that. The fifth tip is to think about how to build an emergency fund. Typically, that's kind of thought of as 3 to 6 months expenses that are saved for the next rainy day, because it may not be another divorce, but another rainy day will come, because that's life. So we have to be prepared and be okay with trying to get there, even if we're not there. Starting out with zero, how did you handle this step?
When I started working, I opened up a savings account, and I believe it was 5 to 10% of every check went straight to that savings account, no matter what was going on that month. It went straight to savings.
Yeah,
so
that never touched it.
Exactly.
It just automatically. Yeah.
I was not going to touch it unless there was an emergency, tires for the car, just something that I had to have the extra money for. I didn't touch it. So
that's good. Very good. That's exactly what I would recommend, and I have done myself as well, because it's really hard to have that discipline to, look through your bills and see what's left at the end. It's like you have to take it off the top.
Exactly.
And somehow it always works out, right? You don't miss it most of the time. Then something comes up, you've got the money. But if you don't start out with taking it off the top, you're going to be in a mess when you need tires or whatever. Right?
Exactly.
Well, the last thing I want to touch on is rediscovering who you are. This is so important, as important as all the money stuff, because actually money is an emotional issue. So before you tackle going from zero to heroine, you have to learn how to treasure your unique personhood, to take care of yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. And because it actually will inform all of your money decisions. I'm 100% guilty of retail therapy, and it can kill your future. So you have to, avoid having a lack of direction that's going to prevent your future success. And to do that, we got to get really clear on who we are and who we aren't, I guess, really, who we are not anymore. And let that person go. Let that old me die. That is hard, gut-wrenching work. What would you say about that in your world?
I would say that after I got divorced, I didn't even know what I liked to do anymore. I had lost myself completely. And so I needed to explore those things, but obviously those things weren't going to be me going out and lavishly spending money, because that's not who you really are. That's not inside your heart. That's not things you enjoy to do. So I had to look around and say, okay, what do I like to do? What do I even enjoy? Because everything I did was what he wanted. And so I did. I started.
So common too.
Yes, it's crazy. Somebody asked me afterwards, what do you like to do? I think I had just started dating, and I said, I don't know.
Let me figure it out.
Exactly. And I did that. I went through and I figured it out. And as a mom, we kind of put our kids first for everything. I mean, that's just how it is. My kids always came first. But I also realized in order for me to be the best mom I could, I had to take care of myself. I had to put my emotional well-being first, because there was a time, I mean, after divorce, a lot of people go through a wild phase. I did, but I lived with my sister, so my kids were always taken care of, and there was nothing super bad, but you kind of feel broken, and you're trying to fill that empty space, and it's not a good time, you know? So when I finally pulled out of that, I thought, you know, what do I want for me? What do I like to do? I need to be healthy for my children. They need to look at me and think, Mom's okay. She's not a mess. She's okay. And so that's what I focused on. I worked on being okay for them first until I was ready to say it was for me. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Very good. Well, starting over with nothing after divorce is not easy, but with the right next steps in order, you can start over stronger. Obviously, Kiersten, you have done it. I have done it. I have supported many women in divorce coaching who are doing it. And the truth is, you've got to learn how to let go of the past, of all the regrets, of the things you don't understand, why it went the way it went, what was done wrong to you, your previous dreams for your future, that old you that allowed things that you look back on now and wonder how you ever thought that was okay. There's an old saying by Betty Hackett, never hold a grudge, because while you're being angry, the other person is out dancing. And I think that's a great metaphor to keep you on task, to shifting all your emotional energy to your own self. Because I see it all the time on the pages like where we met online. Women are just, really still caring about what he's doing and that girl that he's with now. And there's just so much energy going to the past. And when you only have so much emotional energy every day. It's not an unlimited bank account. It's going to run out. So you want to spend that on you. And I want to just wrap up our conversation today with your happy ending to your divorce story, Kiersten. Tell us what you would say is the biggest or the best gift that your divorce gave you.
I would honestly say my education. It sounds ridiculous, but when I started going back to school, it felt like it was going to take forever, because I was working full-time, going to school full-time at night, and being a full-time mom, which was a lot. And I thought it was going to take forever. But after I was done, I found a fantastic job. And then after I got a fantastic job, I went back and got my master's degree, which I just finished in July, which I never thought I would do. But without my education, I would not have been able to get that job. I wouldn't have been able to, and I love my job. I mean, I never ever thought this would be something I would do, but I absolutely love it. And I just bought a house in July with my own credit, with my own money, which I pay for myself. And
that
I cannot,
feels good, I'm sure.
Yes, I can't even tell you how satisfying that is, because I do not get anything from him. And honestly, you talked about anger. I was angry for a long time. I really was. But that anger went away when I could take care of myself, because he's always going to be unhappy. It's him. It's just how he's going to be. And I feel bad for him. I do. Me, I'm not always going to be unhappy. I didn't have anything when I came out of it, but now he can't take my education away. No one can. I know what I'm doing. Even if I lost my job today, heaven forbid, I have experience and a degree that no one can take away from me. And so I can get a job anywhere. I can take care of my children. And for them to look at me and hopefully say, wow, Mom really pulled it. She pulled it out and she did it. That's what I want to come out of this. And I think that was I feel accomplished now. That's my happy ending. I feel I can walk into a room and not feel like I have nothing. I'm smart. I can do what I need to do, and I don't need someone else to take care of me. And that's a great feeling. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, you started off by saying that the biggest gift was your education, and then that might sound ridiculous. I don't know why that would sound ridiculous, but I think it sounds amazing, because what it actually is not so much that certificate of graduation. It's what it did for you internally and the opportunities that it opened up for you. And that's all about emotional freedom. And that's the biggest gift always. Pretty much any answer to what is the biggest gift that divorce gave you is going to boil down to that. A person chose to finally do something for themselves that set them up to have confidence and clarity and hope and peace. And there's no price tag you can put on that. It's worth whatever college costs.
I agree
Right?
completely. I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, thank you for joining us and sharing your story with us, Kiersten. I know I don't ever take it for granted when someone is vulnerable and transparent and willing to open up and talk about the important things in life. I think it's much needed in this world, so thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I hope it helps. I mean, I hope there's a woman out there or a man out there who has nothing, who realizes and thinks, what am I going to do? What am I worth? Guess what? You can do anything. I mean, I started in my 30s again, and I'm 42 now, and I have plenty of life left. So you just have to have faith, know you can do it, and push yourself.
That's right. Well, listeners, I hope this blesses you today on your divorce journey. There's so much to digest from this conversation today. I hope you'll take some time, maybe do some journaling and think about what you heard here today and how it could help you on your journey through divorce. And as always, if you need help as you divorce, please reach out. Like we talked about earlier, you need to reach out for help. You can't do it alone. Doing divorce alone, it just sucks. There's no easy way to say it. And you can email me at Annie@startingoverstronger.com. If you have any questions about anything we talked about today, if you need or even just curious about what a divorce coach is, or certainly if you have a house involved, you need a divorce real estate consultant to help fully inform that big decision, please do let me know. And thank you for tuning in with us each week to talk about what matters to you in and after your divorce. Join us again next week for more help as you divorce and hope as you are starting over stronger.